Welcome in to the 48 Minutes podcast on Believe. I'm Ross Geiger, the former NBA video coordinator, and I'm joined alongside Bruce Bernstein, our four-time Emmy Award winner who spent more than 3 decades at ESPN producing NBA shows, SportsCenter, and soaking up knowledge from the best 2 panelists in the business. Also joining us is the 2-time Emmy Award winner, Michael Wilby Freer, who's a senior writer at Stat Factor, specializing in writing advanced statistical NBA reports for various announcers across the league. This is episode number 237, the Nick Van Exel episode, as Nick the Quick wore number 37 for 1 season as a member of the San Antonio Spurs, a team I think we ought to discuss later on tonight in the show. But let's go ahead and get things started here and do a deep dive into 2 of the biggest surprise teams that also happen to be the 2 teams that are currently in the second spot in their respective conferences. And we're going to go ahead and start out east with your Boston Celtics, Bruce, a team that's just notched their 50th victory of the season on Sunday. What a surprise and story they've been this year.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like we were talking that later in the show we're going to discuss that UConn shot from Sunday in the game against Duke. Well, the whole season's been like almost a miracle for Boston the way they played. They were supposed to be garbage with Jason Tatum out, and then they emptied out all their veteran guys like Porzingis and Holiday and Horford, Cornette. I mean, they're all gone. So, and then they lose Tatum. So it's like, all right, this is going to be, as they call it, a gap season. Well, the gap season is now a 50-win season. And not only is it a 50-win season, Jason Tatum's back. And so, how's he fitting in? Well, in 2 weekend games that Brown missed, Tatum led the team to victory in 2 of them. He averaged 34 minutes in each game. He had an average of 29 points, 8.5 rebounds, and 6.5 assists, and just 2 turnovers, again, in 68 minutes of play over 2 games. That is exactly what, every Celtics wet dream was to have him come back and join this high-achieving group of guys led by Jaylen Brown. We'll talk about him in a second. And just, they look like they're a championship level team. I mean, who would have thought that when the season began? I mean, very few people. And again, we can talk about a lot of different things. I want to let someone else talk, but the main one is that now that Jason Tatum's back, this team could be ready to just roll through the playoffs. I mean, what do you guys think?
World D?
Well, first things first, the more Bruce talks about the Celtics, it means less that I have to talk about. So that's never really a bad thing. Let's get that.
I got plenty, World B.
And that's fine. You can take
free to sip at any time.
I don't mind being like a congressman. I yield my time to the respective Celtics fan from Connecticut. But 12 straight years now they're in the playoffs. That's the longest active streak in the NBA. They're really something else. Beating the Thunder, the Hawks, and the Hornets in the last 3 games entering Monday, that's huge. I mean, not only they snapped the Thunder's 12-game win streak, the matchup I was really looking forward to, you guys know as being a Hornets fan, was that matchup on Sunday against Charlotte and Boston. And, both teams playing well, Charlotte really playing well. They took care of Boston up in their building just earlier, a few weeks earlier in the month. Boston just never had a moment's doubt about this game. They were in control from the get-go, and they really took it to what I think is a pretty darn good Hornets team all of a sudden, and they made Charlotte look like now Charlotte's going on a second game of back-to-back, had an emotional loss on Saturday, but still, that's what you do in the NBA. You got to win some of these games. The really good teams can do it. And Boston came out and just punched them right in the mouth, and they never recovered. The really great thing about Boston right now, and by the way, first of all, I was dead wrong. I was the guy that thought they weren't going to make the playoffs. Without preseason prediction. I just thought they lost so much. They just had so much going. I really didn't anticipate Tatum coming back. It was really Jaylen Brown and a party of favors, it seemed like. And they've really turned it around. Mazzulla's done a great job, and I'm sure we'll talk about him before the end of the season. But, 7 out of the last 9 opponents coming into Monday were held under 110 points. That's ridiculous defense by them. They're just really – they've been impressive like crazy. They've been probably the most surprising team in the league this year.
Yeah, they are. And I'm glad you brought that up, Bruce. If you don't mind, I wanted to hop on this defensive talk here because, how seriously are we taking the Celtics? Well, we all know defense wins championships come playoff time, and Boston will be bringing that defense, one of the best team defenses, to the playoffs this season. They lead the league in holding opponents to just 106.8 points per game. And I just kind of focused more on this current 3-game winning streak that the Celtics are on. They held the Thunder to 109 points. OKC averages 118.7 a game. They held the Hawks to 102. The Hawks averaged 118.3 a game. And as World B alluded to with the Hornets, they just scored 99 points against the Celtics. And Charlotte averages 111.7 points a game. So you combine that team defense along with the fact that your main star, Jason Tatum, just continues to ramp up his play offensively. I mean, he scored his first 32-point game over this weekend. The volume's been there. The efficiency's been there for the most part. I mean, he's shooting the ball extremely well, given the fact he's coming off an Achilles tear. And the way he's moving looks seamless out there. So this is a really scary team. And you have that defense. You have Tatum back in the mix offensively. That is a scary recipe for opposing teams come playoff time, Bruce.
I'll say this thing. I'm sorry, Bruce. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, following up on both of what you guys said about defense, Derek White is simply one of the best all-around defenders in the entire NBA at 6'4". If he's not first team all defensive, then nobody deserves to be first team all defensive. I mean, it was always him and Drew Holiday together, but, as Drew has kind of aged out more or less, I mean, he's now – Derek White is like right in the prime of his career. He's about 29 or 30 years old. And, he blocks shots. He's always in the right position. To me, I mean, all-time Celtics fans will remember a player named Dennis Johnson, okay? Dennis Johnson was a key guy on all of their 80s championships, at least 84 and 86. He wasn't there in 81. But he was like, Derek White's like Dennis Johnson 2.0. He's clutch when he shoots it. He's not a 25-point scorer, but when they need a bucket, especially a three late in the game, he gets a good look. I mean, and a lot of times he makes it. And speaking of that, I mean, live by the three, die by the three. They've learned to not be quite that way. They still love their threes, no question about it. But they get a lot of twos now, too. And amazingly, one of the guys who's the best at it is Peyton Pritchard. Peyton Pritchard is an absolute weapon, all right? When he first came up, I always said he reminded me of sort of like a poor man's T.J. McConnell because of his way of playing. Well, he's kind of exceeded, TJ at this point,
Yes.
But, they're like spirit animals, and with Pritchard and White. And again, they have two really sort of lockdown guys. Jaylen Brown can lock you down. Derek White can lock you down. Namish Keita's been great guarding the paint. He's a very aggressive rebounder. He gets his hands on the ball and he throws his elbows out and he hangs onto the ball. So yeah, they're scary in a lot of ways. And, we didn't even really talk about Joe Mazzulla, who's just been sensational.
Yeah, you mentioned the threes. They're not as prolific at attempting the threes. It's still around 46%. It's still top 5. To Bruce's point, it's not just the mid-range game. They just decided this year we're going to take our offense to mid-range more. About 8% of their scoring comes from mid-range. They were down the bottom the last few years during their championship years and their contending years. Jaylen Brown's for a longer time, was getting over 10%. I don't think he ever had even 10% for his whole career in any season. Now he's like 12 or whatever. It's just crazy how he has been able, to turn things around. Like I said, they're still a 3-point barrage. They're still one of the league leaders in taking them. They don't take as many as Bruce mentioned, and they're really doing it more than ever before, at least from mid-range.
Now, before we should probably tap the brakes quickly, and I know Russ, you probably want to move on. They did just finish up their Monday night game against Atlanta on the road, and Atlanta beat them. Okay, so tap the brakes a little bit, but they're still up 2 on the Knicks in the loss column at this point. So, but that was one of their toughest remaining games.
Yeah, and that's what I wanted to get to next. So glad to hear we know the end result, even though it wasn't what you wanted there, Bruce, against the Hawks there tonight. but a 2-game lead over the Knicks for the second spot out east. So my question to both of you guys is, do you think that the Knicks can catch Boston? World B, I'll start with you on this one.
No, I don't think so. I think the Knicks are relegated to that third spot, and like I said, it's just like last year. I mentioned this before during the show. We talked so much about the Knicks changing coaches and they're keeping the lineup and everything was going to change. Well, last year they were third in the Eastern Conference behind the Celtics. This year they're third in the Eastern Conference behind the Celtics. So, and now they want to win want to get to the spot or whatever. They're probably going to have to win another series in Boston. They I don't know if you want to say caught a break or whatever last year. They certainly made some big comebacks in those first 2 games were amazing. But you're asking this team to try and do it again. I don't see it happening. I don't see the Knicks catching them. That win streak they had, I mentioned it before in previous shows, that win streak the Knicks had that, before the last couple of losses, gets the worst of the worst in this league. I mean, they played the worst teams with the worst defenses. Of course they're going to do well. And, you saw it, after that when they had to go up against quality teams, they didn't have it. And I just don't think they are as talented or having as good a team as Boston. It's just how it is.
Bruce, what's your thoughts on this? Because I know that when we were, preparing this show, you had pointed out, and I went ahead and just double checked, both these teams have tough remaining schedules.
Yeah, they do. And again, with Boston now, their next 3 games are at Miami, at Milwaukee, home versus Toronto, and home versus Charlotte, and then at the Knicks. Okay, that is obviously must win for the Knicks. The Knicks up to them, they've got to play Houston on the road on Tuesday, tough game. Wednesday on the road in Memphis, back-to-back, could be a tough game against a scrappy team. They should win, but, it's a back-to-back on the road. I mean, it's never easy. Then they're home against Chicago and then at Atlanta. So, I mean, they don't control their own destiny either. They could run the table and it might not be enough because, if Boston can, beat up on some of these teams, because their final 2 are home against New Orleans and Orlando. Those should both be wins if Boston needs them to be wins. Okay. So I think it's going to be really tough. I mean, the Knicks got to win every game. And if they lose to Houston on Tuesday night, that's going to really reduce their chances drastically.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with both of you. I just don't see the Knicks catching the Celtics, especially given their upcoming road trip that they have. And I think that Houston game is going to be a tough one for them to go ahead and beat, because this is one Houston needs too. Houston is right in the thick of things in the Western Conference with nothing solidified out there in the West. So this is a must-win for both those teams. So tough one for the road Knicks. Now, moving on, let's go ahead and shift things to the West here, because we got to talk about the hottest team in the league right now, and that would be the San Antonio Spurs, because they are currently riding a league-high 8 straight wins. They're now 56-18 on the season, if you can believe that. Now, World B, I know this team is young, but they're extremely talented, and they haven't experienced the playoffs together just yet. But I don't think it's crazy to call them a title contender either. What are your thoughts with the Spurs heading into the playoff picture with no experience as a group? Do you think that matters when you're this talented?
I think it does matter. I don't know if it's going to matter with this team. They just keep defying. Bruce picked it, a long time ago that he thought big things out of this team, and I was taking a wait and see approach. And boy, I'm seeing a lot. I'm liking what they're doing. The reason they are a title contender is really, if you look at, there's only 2 teams in this league right now that are top 5 at both ends of the court, offensively and defensively in terms of efficiency. It's the Spurs and the team we were just talking about, the Celtics. So we like the Celtics' chances as contenders. There's no reason not to like the Spurs. I mean, their 8-game winning streak is great, but it's way much more than that. They're like 24-2 since February. They're just blowing the doors off everybody they run into. And for me, it's, we're going to get into this later on, but Wemby is a difference maker all over the court, and especially on defense. It's just incredible. In his career, 3 years now, 11 games with a combined 10 steals or blocks. It's 11 games he's had a combined, combination of steals and blocks add up to 10. That's nobody else has more than 5. The rest of the league combined has 5 over that span. It's an absurd number here. Shout out to NBA.com for providing me with that info. So it's just an incredible thing for them to be doing what they're doing. Their defense is the most improved in the league, which, with Wemby healthy and playing as much as he has, that's a given. They were going to be improved, but it's the most improved in the league. The one thing I would caution about them is there is a possibility. I mean, we got weeks ago. I get it. There is a possibility they end up in a first-round battle with, say, the Clippers, an experienced team like LA, with all that, the youth of San Antonio against the experience of the Clippers with another MVP-type player in Kawhi Leonard. That's a little bit of a problem. But, the whole thing with experience is how do you deal with adversity? Because you're going to have it in the playoffs. We thought the Thunder were going to roll last year through the playoffs, through the finals, right up until they lost the first game of the series. And then they were, they responded the way you champions do, and that's why they won the title. So we got to see how they responded to adversity. I don't think it's a major deal for the Spurs, but it absolutely could be.
Bruce?
Wemby deserves MVP, as predicted by yours truly. He will definitely win Defensive Player of the Year, as predicted by everybody, not just yours truly. He's a complete cheat code. He is averaging 3.1 blocks per game. There is no one else in the NBA averaging even 2, okay? Mm-hmm. The next after 3.1 are 3 guys at 1.8. Evan Mobley, okay? Chet Holmgren, and Jay Huff of the Pacers, okay? Nice. Which one doesn't belong here? Yeah. Anyway, but I like Jay Huff. I thought he was good in Memphis. I mean, I thought he was a good player. Anyway, Wemby's the number 3 rebounder in the NBA behind Joker and Cat, who we continuously bash for being away from the basket, but he's still number 2 in the league in rebounding. Shout out to Cat there, deservedly so. The Spurs are probably going to win their game Monday night against the Bulls. They're up by 17 as we're recording this at 10 o'clock Eastern time. They're up by 19 with just over 9 minutes left. Wemby in 26 minutes, okay, 37 points, 13 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 block shots, okay, in 26 minutes, okay. If they win this game, as it looks like they will be 39-11 in their last 50 games. Let that sink in a little bit. 39-11 in their last 50 games. All right. They have the perfect blend of youth. Wemby, Stephon Castle, Dylan Harper, guys in their prime, De'Aaron Fox, Devin Vassell, Keldon Johnson, and wily veterans, Harrison Barnes, friend of the show, Luke Cornett. Okay. They've got everything. They have everything. All right. They've beaten Oklahoma City 4 out of 5 times this year. Okay. So someone's going to have to explain to me why they shouldn't be considered the favorite at this point.
Yeah. And I'm glad you mentioned all those tiers of guys, the young guys, the guys in their prime, and also their veterans, because, after the Spurs punished my Bucks on the Bucks home floor in Milwaukee this past weekend, there was actually a post-game quote that really caught my attention and stood out to me. There was a quote that came from Doc Rivers when he was asked about the Spurs team and their lack of experience come playoff time and whether or not that will be a factor. And Doc pointed out an important trait regarding this group, and I think it goes back to the tiers you just pointed out, Bruce, is nobody has any agendas. The only guy with an agenda on this team is Wemby to dominate, and that's a great agenda for him to have.
Win games and just win.
Yeah. And just win. He just wants to win. But nobody else, no one else on this team is selfish. They play selfless basketball. And he also gave credit to their perimeter defense. And he said, hey, that goes beyond just Wemby. If you look at the guard play on this team, they all take pride on the defensive end, whether that's Castle, Harper, Fox getting after guys now, Harrison Barnes out there on the wings. As you said, they have it all. And the fact that they're playing for one common goal, and there is nobody out there looking to win Rookie of the Year or Most Improved. The only guy going for something is Wemby, and that is to be the best player in the world. And trust me, I feel like everyone wants to promote that on the Spurs. Wouldn't you want to? I mean, outside of that, there's zero agenda with this group, and it's truly been amazing to watch this group come together and how they've developed throughout the season. Because as you said, their last 50-game record is unbelievable, and they are definitely a team I would not want to face in the Western Conference if I had a pony in the race.
Well, B, I want to take a page out of your book here real quick. The teams with the 5 best records in the NBA, OKC, Spurs, Detroit, Boston, and the Knicks, they're all in the top 5 in these 2 stats: opponent's field goal percentage and scoring differential, okay? Yeah. Opponent's field goal percentage, as I've said on this show numerous times, according to my guru, the late Jack Ramsey, was the most important defensive stat. You can look at all the analytics, you can look at everything. Opposing field goal percentage, if you make teams miss shots and you're a decent rebounding team, you will win. So those 5 teams are all in the top 5. So that's the penthouse of the NBA. One of those 5 teams is going to win the championship, I would say.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Now let's go ahead and talk about another one of those teams in that top 5, and that is the Oklahoma City Thunder, who currently hold a 2.5-game lead over the Spurs for the number 1 spot in the Western Conference. And my question to you guys is this: how important is it for OKC to finish number 1 out west? Bruce, I'll start with you.
Very. Okay. The reason being, they've been leading the league with the best record from wire to wire. And if somebody would nip them at the end and they would not end up with the best overall record after having it for 99% of the season, that will be definitely a little bit of a psychological ding on them, I think. That, and then in a more practical sense, let's assume they're gonna match up with the Spurs for the Western Conference Championship. They're 1-4 against the Spurs. You want that home court advantage. Yeah. You're going to need that home court advantage, or else you could lose.
Yeah, the Thunder need all the X factors they can get if they have to face off against the Spurs. And I also want to point out, before we get to World B here, that the Thunder hold the league's best home record at 31-6 on the campaign. But guess who's right behind them at 28-7? It's the Spurs. So absolutely you need that home court in the event that you might have to run in and face Wemby and the Spurs come playoff time. World B, what's your thoughts?
I take the other side. I don't think it's as important as you guys think. They have the best road record in the league for starters, 28-9, so they got that going for them. I think they have the championship pedigree, if you will, the experience of being the title team. They remind me of the kind of team like the Bulls had during the 80s or 90s, excuse me. The Bulls didn't have the best record every single season they won the title. In fact, the first three-peat they had, the final season of that, 1993, the Knicks actually had more wins. They had to go to New York. New York had home court advantage for the Eastern Conference Finals. And they just had the experience. They had the ability to win on the road, and they end up taking a game at the Garden and coming back and winning in 6. They didn't even go 7 games. And I think and by the way, they didn't have home court advantage against the Suns in that championship either. The Suns had the best record in the league, and they end up winning that series in their building. I see the Thunder as that kind of a team. Obviously, you want to have home court. Obviously, you want the better advantage. The more advantages you have, the better. And you're absolutely right. Going 1-4 against the Spurs is not something you want on your resume for very long when you trying to win a championship. And especially the way I don't think it's important, but I don't think it's that important. I think they can win a championship without home court advantage.
If you're looking at the remaining schedules for both the Spurs and the Thunder, okay, I see 4 losable games. I'm not saying they will lose, but 4 losable games on OKC's schedule. I see Detroit Monday night, and it's a close game. It's early on as we're recording this. It's a 3-point game. Thunder are winning. Okay. The Lakers, they've got twice, and the Lakers are not garbage. Games. Okay. No. And Denver. Okay. So those 4 games, while they aren't going to lose all 4 are losable. I look at the Spurs, and I only see 2 losable games on their schedule, and it's the 2 remaining games against Denver. Okay. Everything else, I think they should win. So really, the Thunder are really going to have to keep their foot on the gas because the Spurs could nip them at the wire if they stumble ever so slightly, and the Spurs keep rolling as they have been.
Yeah, and I think it benefits the Spurs just to continue to hold OKC's feet to the fire as far as the standing race is concerned too. Even if they don't catch them, just to have them stressed down the stretch here where they can't rest guys as much could only benefit, the Spurs potentially down the road as we get to the conference finals. All right, let's go ahead and get to some fun questions to ponder down this stretch. First off, of the 8 play-in teams as of taping here on Monday night, which one has the best chance of beating a 1 or 2 seed in a first-round series? Bruce?
In the Western Conference, I don't think any of them would. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the 4, and I don't think. But in the East, I could see 2 teams that might have the potential. Philadelphia and Charlotte. They both have winning records on the road. Very important, especially for a team that's just, closer to 500. Yep. Charlotte has the second best rebound differential in the entire NBA. Okay. That's a huge stat. When the game slows down, you need to grab make a stop, get the rebound. Charlotte is number 1 in 3-pointers made. Okay. And they're 8th best in points allowed. Okay. And I'd say Philadelphia is kind of just a notch below them. I mean, look, they've got Maxey and Edgecombe in the backcourt. It's dynamic. Embiid has been healthy, and when he's healthy, he's averaging like nearly 27. Paul George is back. Okay. Kelly Oubre had missed a couple weeks. He's back now. Okay. So they're sort of getting a little bit healthier. But again, I would say to me, Charlotte is the team in the play-in cluster that could beat like a 2 seed. I don't know if they'd beat Detroit.
Yeah. All right. Well, did you echo that? You got Charlotte too, or somebody else?
No, I don't have Charlotte, actually. I think what I saw on Saturday night with Charlotte against the 76ers was a team, as much as I love the Hornets, they really, when the game is tight, they haven't really they've been blowing teams out like crazy. You look at their big opponents they beat, they've all been blowouts. So they've dominated them. But you get games that are tight, and they have some breakdowns in key possessions. LaMelo Ball, I'm his biggest fan of his, is probably out there is in this league among all the fans. But he had some breakdowns in that 76ers game, and they have experience with Paul George hitting huge threes, Joel Embiid with a huge block at that end. So I agree with Bruce. If there was somebody in the East, I would say the 76ers with that experience and everybody healthy. But honestly, for me, I mentioned it before earlier in the show, I think if it's the right matchup, and I mean that like the Spurs or something, I can see the Clippers being one of those teams with all that veteran leadership or whatever, and Kawhi Leonard playing, as well as he could possibly play these days. And, we forget about him. For the last 3 or 4 months, they've really had one of the best records in the league since like late December, just before Christmas. They started going on the roll. And they're still a top 5 team record-wise. Their offense has really improved. Their defense has really improved. So they have a shot, I think, with the right matchup. I don't think if they got stuck with the Thunder, they could beat OKC. But a young team, like I mentioned, like the Spurs, yeah, I could see a 2-7 win for LA.
All right. Well, I've got the 76ers, and I think they have a chance to beat the Detroit Pistons in round 1, as crazy as that may sound, because, with the very scary and unfortunate collapsed lung injury to Cade Cunningham, all bets are off come playoff time with this group.
True. Yeah.
I mean, I know the team has impressively held down the fort so far with Cade out, but the playoffs are just an entirely different beast where you need your MVP caliber player. I mean, Cade would be in the MVP conversation had he not gotten injured. I just don't know if they're able to survive a 7-game series where, the opposing team can strategically game plan and attack flaws on the other opposing team. So should the Sixers get a healthy first-round series out of Joel Embiid, I think he'll create a lot of problems for Detroit, even with as well as Jalen Duren's been playing. I think that's going to be a tough one for Duren to match up with. And I also love Philly's backcourt duo, Tyrese Maxey and VJ Edgecombe. They're both quick and athletic enough to really test Detroit's elite young athletic defenders in Asar Thompson and Ron Holland. So I think it'd be a hell of a matchup. It's definitely one where, of course, the Pistons would still be favored, but I wouldn't be shocked if the Sixers pulled off the upset.
I'm going to give an honorable mention. A few weeks ago, World B mentioned this team, and the Miami Heat. Okay, they're always better than you think they're going to be. I'm not saying I think they're better than Charlotte or Philadelphia. I don't think they are. They're always better than you think they're going to be. And with a guy like Bam, with a guy like, Tyler Hero, Norm Powell's been great for those guys. I mean, they're dangerous. They're well coached, and they don't beat themselves. But again, I think they just a tick below those other teams. But I feel obligated as a basketball fan to mention Miami because, they'll make me look bad if I don't at least say their name.
Just don't mention Heat culture, Bruce, anymore. After what we saw in that whole 83-point debacle, the Heat culture, that's done. I'm done with Heat culture stuff for a while.
Well, let's move on.
83 points will do that to you. How World B?
It wasn't the points. It was how the team went about it. I have nothing against Bam. I thought the way they went about it was disgusting.
Okay.
Well, let's head out to the West Coast and talk about the Lakers culture or the Lake Show as they remain red hot, 9-1 in their last 10 games. But the real question is this will be, are they a real threat to win it all this season?
It's really tough. I mean, this could very well be the best team the Lakers have had, including the title team. They're that strong with LeBron and Luka running the show, along with Austin Reeves when he gets healthy. And I don't know if they're still a title contender because I just don't see them getting past a team like the Thunder. I just don't see them having enough to do it. Now they have the people in place. It's really, like you said, they are absolutely on a roll here. And the one thing I will put in their favor is their defense has really been, they're on a stretch of like 14-2 or something in the last 16 games, and their defense has finally gotten into the top 10. They were down in the bottom 10 until this run. They've improved over this stretch. So they've really gotten better defensively. And the one thing they do have going for them, and they've had it all year, if they get to the free throw line, they get a lot of freebies, better than any team in the league by a good margin. And, that's big. They got good shooters. If they can get, obviously with Luka getting 10 free throws a night, free throw attempts, along with 10 threes, by the way. That's still one of the most amazing stats I've seen this season. 10 threes a night from the, 10 shots from three, 10 shots from the free throw line. I think only Harden's done that in the NBA history. That's ridiculous. I just don't.
Look at how many titles he's won.
That's true. Wow. Absolutely. I just think they're enough of a notch below the Thunder and probably the Spurs. I just don't see them as being a legit contender. But like I said, this might be the best team they've had. I don't think it is that year they won in the bubble, but it's pretty close to where they're playing.
All right, Bruce, what are your thoughts? Sounds like you're not on board with calling them the title contender.
Well, here's the thing. I think they have an excellent shot at finishing 53-29, which will put them in the number 3 seed in the West, okay? Luka, super talented. I think he's a poor leader. I think he's immature. I think he's whiny. He got himself suspended from Monday night's game against Washington, which shouldn't really matter because they'll probably win that game without him, okay? But he needs to suck it up and keep playing when he doesn't get a call. He's like a big baby out there. Now, that said, if this team should find a way to go on a huge run and win it all, it's a long shot. But if that happens, please don't tell me anymore that LeBron James, even in a secondary role, is not the greatest effing player of all time. Because if they could somehow or another win a championship with that team that they have, it's going to be because he came up huge. There's just no getting around it. Yes, he's missed 20 games. He's 41 years old, but he's still averaging just under 21 points, 6 rebounds, and just under 7 assists, playing over 33 minutes a game, okay? He is just remarkable. I think he's paced himself this year a little bit. He's sat out 20 games. He said, I'm not going to be all league. I'm not going to be all, whatever. I'm not going to qualify for any awards. He's won them all multiple times. He doesn't, at this point, only thing left for him is winning. But look, even if they finish in that 3rd spot, okay, which I believe they will, they are going to have to grind so hard just to win a first-round series because they're going to play the 6th seed, let's say, if that happens, which is likely to be one of these three teams: Houston, Minnesota, or Denver. Okay. And even though LA is going to have a better record than any of those teams, their big is DeAndre Ayton, Mr. I have no idea what he's going to show up with against Joker, the Houston front line, and the bigs on Minnesota. Okay. He could end up showing why he was the number one overall pick in 2018, or he could be the DeAndre Ayton that we've seen for the last 6, 7, 8 years. LA will be in a lot of trouble because of that position. But you know what? I want to end with something positive on the Lakers. Want to hear a fun fact about Bronny James?
Okay. Yes, of course.
Bronny James is actually a solid three-point shooter. He's shooting 41.9% from three-point range for the season. It's a small sample. He's only 13 for 31, but that's 41.9% on threes. That's still a good percentage. So, just wanted to share that goodness about LeBron's little boy.
There we go. Well, something we learn every day is Bronny James is a good three-point shooter. I don't know if I'm ready to put that in the history book, but something to maybe track heading into next year's summer league. That's for sure. Now, I'm not sure I'm ready to call this Lakers team a real threat to win it all this season, but I'm willing to go as far as to say that they're a legit threat to make like the Western Conference semifinals, because I just don't see a world where they can beat the Thunder or the Spurs to get in there to the championship title. And if they do, Bruce, you're exactly right. LeBron James is going to do something unimaginable at his age. He's going to turn back the clocks, and it would be like him back in Cleveland in the finals if he's able to defeat Wemby or SGA for that matter. But I just think with the Spurs and Thunder, there's way too much defense and youth for the Lakers to keep up with. I think they can wear Luka down. They can wear LeBron down. And with DeAndre Ayton, you never know what you're going to get on a nightly basis. So could be really tough. But I will say I got to give a lot of credit to this Lakers group. Mm-hmm. I don't think anyone here would have thought they'd be a top 3 team in the West, especially given how things shook out at the beginning of the year for this group. And, for LeBron to kind of take a step back and get in the back seat this year to kind of help the team. It has helped the team tremendously. I think it's helped the development of Austin Reeves as well. And I think only good things are going to come for the Lakers' future with LeBron deciding to, tone it down a little bit this year and kind of save up for the playoffs, because, they could still surprise some teams like a Denver, like a Houston, some really good, respectable teams out there that coming into the year we thought were title contenders. The Lakers might take their place as someone that could be at least knocking on that door. Now, speaking of Luka, the MVP race is heating up, and I've got to ask you guys, is this the most competitive race we've ever had? I mean, we've got Wemby, Luka, the Joker, SGA, and even Jaylen Brown, Bruce. So they're all in the mix this year, but who is your favorite to win it all?
It shouldn't be that competitive because, as I've said, about every other segment since we've been doing this show in the preseason, Victor Wembanyama is definitely the MVP of the league. He just is. I'm sorry. He is. After that, I feel he deserves that and the Defensive Player of the Year. I mean, look, he's got as good a case as anybody and better than most. But after Wemby, let's say he doesn't win it, but after Wemby, here's my order after Wemby.
Okay.
I'd say SGA is second. Jaylen Brown is third. Joker is fourth. I'm going to reluctantly give Luka fifth and Jalen Brunson sixth.
All right. World B?
Well, if they keep playing the way they're playing, first of all, I agree with Bruce. Wemby is, as he has all the credentials, his resume can stack up with anybody. I will say this. If he can continue to lead the Lakers, even to stay in that third spot, which is that's about as far as high up as they can go, I think Luka could very well end up with the MVP. His numbers are just ridiculous. He is finishing on a major heater with scoring, and he's the only player in the league doing 37-7. So there's nobody else pulling that. The last person to do that was Luka a few years ago. So he's got that going for him. I just think if the Lakers go ahead and continue to win the way they're playing, and he puts up the numbers he's putting up, and Lord knows he's going to take all the shots. He's a leading scorer, but that's because he's one of the top 2 in the league in shots, so that helps. But he's also draining it from 3. He's also getting to the free throw line. He's up there. He's 4th in assists, so he can make a big, strong case as well as anybody. I still think Joker is probably the best all-around, or at least the best offensive player in the league. I won't say all-around, but I think his numbers offensively are just ridiculous every night, triple-double machine. And if the Thunder end up with the best record in the league, once again, a lot of attention is going to be on SGA. But for me, right now, if he keeps going, for me, it'd be Luka.
Yeah, I'm gonna second that, World B, because I don't have a firm answer on this as of right now. It's truly one of the most competitive races ever, in my opinion, because let's face it, it's basically April, and I feel like our answer continues to change almost daily. When was the last time we were here in April talking about the MVP race and didn't really have like a defined at least 1, 2? Right now, we got 5 guys that legitimately should be discussed when thinking about this award. But I'm going with Luka, who is in his first full season with the Lakers. I think a lot of people forget that. This is his first full season with the Lakers, and all of a sudden he has the team in 3rd place out west, sitting 22 games above 500. And as you pointed out, World B, he just so happens to also lead the league in points per game, averaging nearly 34 a night. And if Luka doesn't win it this year, when does he win it? Because there's really maybe a chance that Luka Doncic never wins an MVP if he doesn't win it this year. Because with Wemby around, I mean, unless he's hurt next year, I've got Wemby winning MVP now. We don't even have to have a prediction show next year. I'm taking Wemby right here, right now, on March 30th. I will
say this. I will say that there is a chance down the road Luka could be a future MVP, only because at some point LeBron's going to leave, either the league or the Lakers. And then for Luka to put up the kind of numbers and not have LeBron by his side through all of it, people will start to give that some attention. Well, fair or not, whether it's legit or not, I think there is a avenue for him to someday secure the MVP. I don't know. You could absolutely – I could see him not winning it ever, if not this year. But there is a possibility down the road because of the absence of LeBron and Luka putting up numbers, maybe leading the Lakers to the best record. One of those scenarios.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say it's mind-blowing just the fact that Luka's, stature in this league, his talent, and he might not have one. I just say it's wild that our league is this talented that Luka could look back at his career and not have an MVP. It's a legit possibility.
Here's my minuses for Luka. Okay. Number one, I mentioned it before. He is a complaining, whining baby. No, I'm serious. I mean, he complains all the time, nonstop. To me, that's a couple of demerits against him. Okay. I think he's a very poor leader. I think he really doesn't play a whole heck of a lot of defense. Most of the other guys we talked about play both ends of the floor.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, SGA sure does. Jaylen Brown, of course. Joker is kind of a unicorn. I think he's probably better defensively than we think he is. But I mean, he at least puts in the effort. Luka occasionally puts in the effort. Jalen Brunson is scrappy at least. Okay. So I don't like his fact that he doesn't play defense. I don't like the way he carries himself, and, those are kind of, things to me when I look at the guy who's most valuable. I mean, remember a couple weeks ago, he was coming off the court. JJ took him out of the game and JJ wanted to talk to him and Luka slapped his hand away. I thought that was such a Bush League move to show up his coach like that. So again, those are some of the things that make me not think Luka, despite his unbelievable talent and his incredible numbers. When Byron Scott was on the show a few weeks ago, or maybe it was when Michael Cooper was on over the summer, we were talking about him. And I said, he's a fantasy league Hall of Famer. He fills up every column in the box score. You can't be more of a box score stuffer than Luka Doncic is. But, I guess I still need to see more before I'm ready to give him my vote.
Yeah, no, I think those are all valid points that you raised there, Bruce. On your front for sure. I don't think World Beer and I are going to argue with those at all. And it'd be nice if he stopped the whining for sure. Just as far as the numbers are concerned this year, I mean, they're right up there as one of the best in the league. So
World B, you mentioned World B, just real quick, a question for you. You mentioned that Luka shoots 10 threes a game and also goes to the free throw line 10 times a game.
Yeah.
Is he the leader in free throw attempts per game? Because if he is, and he's still a major whiner, then I'm really annoyed with him.
Yeah, he's the only one who gets 10 free throw attempts a night. Giannis is just below. He's at 9.9, so it's not like it's. But yeah, he's the only one who does that, and he's also behind Curry in threes attempts.
Okay. Anyway, so you were going to say something. Sorry.
No, I think your point about his whining or whatever. It's a bit. He needs to be a face of this league, and it's not a good. You put him out there. It's just not a good look for this league in terms of the reputation, and the league already has enough to deal with whining and drawing fouls and doing all this stuff. And he's one of them, just like SGA is. SGA's ability to draw fouls is infuriating to me, just like Jalen Brunson. It infuriates me when he does that and doesn't get a call and whines about it. That is a problem in this league. And yeah, Luka may be the best, most talented player in the league, but he's also the biggest whiner in the league, and there's no question about it.
Yep. Now let me go ahead and pick your guys' brain on some possible coaching changes. So what has a better chance of happening? Steve Kerr returns to coach Golden State, or Jahmal Mosley returns to coach Orlando next season? Bruce?
As long as Stephen Curry is still an active player, Steve Kerr's job is safe. Once Steph says goodbye, I'm guessing the Dubs will probably say goodbye to Steve Kerr. So since Steph Curry is planning on playing next year, I would say Steve Kerr will be coaching next year. As for Jahmal Mosley, he's a good coach. He should keep his job. This shouldn't be like an either or, I think. But if you're holding a gun to my head, I'll say Kerr's got a better chance of being with his team next year than Jahmal Mosley. But, if Jahmal Mosley is released by the Magic, I mean, Sacramento's going to be on line one calling him saying, hey, how do you like the West Coast?
Yeah. Roby, what's your thoughts? I especially want to know your answer to this question after the 31-0 run Toronto went on Sunday night.
Yeah, I think I agree with Bruce. I think of the two, Steve Kerr has a better chance of returning next year. I'm a big, you guys, we obviously know I'm a big Magic fan, and I'm a big Jahmal Mosley fan. I agree with Bruce. I think he's an excellent coach. He's one of the reasons this team has turned it around. I remember a few years ago when they were not part of my remote, clicking through channels, following, if I see them on, I'm changing the channel. That's not the case anymore. But I am really losing by 52 when you need a big win like they got in Toronto, like they just got absolutely, as you mentioned, 31-0 run. It seems clear to me that they just tuned him out, which is really sad because I think he's a good coach. It's okay, by the way. Your voice, people get tired of your voice. Your voice doesn't always hurt after a while. You've been there a long time. It happens. I was a big, obviously fan of the Hornets. Steve Clifford did a great job with that team, but I think they tuned him out after. Your voice gets old after a while, after a few years. It happens. I think the Knicks got tired of Pat Riley at the end of his tenure during the 90s. It gets old after a while with guys who have been there for a long time. And I suspect that that's probably the case in this situation with Jahmal Mosley. Losing by 52 to a team when you're battling to try and survive, get your season back on track, is not really good when you have to walk into the GM's office and explain yourself at the end of the year. So their season's going downhill fast, and Desmond Bane's not going anywhere. I don't think Paolo's going anywhere, but who the heck knows? None of those guys are going there anywhere. Then who's next in line? It's going to be the coach.
Yeah, I'm with both of you guys. I've got Kerr having a better chance of sticking around to coach the Golden State Warriors because I think it comes down to this being more ultimately Steve Kerr's decision. I don't think Steve Kerr would even be leaving the organization if he steps down from the head coaching position. He would be in the front office or an advisor at the very least. But I think it comes back to his relationship with Steph Curry. I don't think he's going to turn his back on Steph this late into Curry's career after everything that Steph's given him and the Golden State franchise over the course of his career. So I think he's going to ride this one out until Curry either says, you know what, coach, like, I'm not going to be mad at you if you leave. But, if Curry still thinks there's some meat on the bone and that they could still win something of significance, I think Curry's not going to give up on that hope for Curry's sake either. So interesting offseason lies ahead for Jahmal Mosley and the Orlando Magic, though. Now, last but certainly not least, World B, why don't you lead us with our final thought here tonight?
Well, it got me thinking after watching over the weekend one of the most miraculous shots in the NCAA tournament, the history of the tournament, when Braylon Mullins hit from the logo type 3 for University of Connecticut to help them beat Duke in a miraculous comeback down 19 and get to the Final Four. It's one of the iconic shots. It will be going forward in the history of the NCAA tournament. So I just, I texted you guys before the show. I said, what would be your iconic or most memorable shot in the history of the NBA?
Bruce, lead us off.
I'm going to go with the 2013 NBA Finals. Ray Allen with the three-pointer at the end of Game 6, tying the game, which the Heat won in overtime, and then they won the championship in Game 7. This shot, when you in the moment, it's like, oh, wow, unbelievable. But if you look back in time now, and we're now 13 years removed from that shot, there were so many things about that shot. Number one, the shot that was rebounded by Chris Bosh, was a three-pointer that was missed by LeBron James, So LeBron misses the three. Pop had taken Tim Duncan out of the game, I guess, because he wanted more perimeter defense. So Bosh was like the best rebounder on either team at that point. LeBron misses. Bosh rebounds it. He kicks it out to the right corner. Ray Allen's just waiting, Bosh hits him right in his shooting pocket. He shoots. Game, goes to overtime. Had Allen missed that shot, the Spurs win the championship in 6 games. LeBron James's tenure in Miami takes on a whole new utility, if you will, because, they would have been 1-2 in the finals instead of 2-1. Eventually, the next year the Spurs got him back, but that shot was miraculous. And here's what's really funny about that. Because when we were thinking about this, I went back and looked at what happened in Game 7, the following game where they won, all right? LeBron had 37 points. Dwayne Wade had 23. Chris Bosh, 0 points. Ray Allen, 0 points in Game 7, all right? Mario Chalmers had a nice game. He was in the teens or something like that. But there was just so many ripples around that shot. But to me, and I was at those finals. I was watching that sequence with John Barry, previous guest on this show, Tim Legler, previous guest on this show, and Brent Bones Barry, never a guest on this show. Maybe someday he will be. And we were all just completely in. It was the same feeling that I had yesterday watching the Mullins shot. It was like, OMFG, if you know, you know. It was unbelievable. And that's the one I remember most, 2013 Ray Allen Game 6.
All right. Nice pick there, Bruce. World B, what's your pick?
I thought about this, and I think I told you guys before the show, but while I was thinking about it, I came up with a different one. There's a lot of candidates. You get Jerry West from beyond half court in the 1970 NBA Finals to tie a game, force overtime against the Knicks, was just probably the iconic shot of his career, the logo, so that was certainly a candidate. And then I mentioned to you I was going to go with Gar Hurd hitting a turnaround jumper in the second overtime of Game 5 of the 1976 NBA Finals against the Celtics in the Boston Garden that forced a third overtime, and arguably the greatest game in the history of the NBA playoffs. But for me, the more I thought about it while we're talking about Kyrie Irving's three-point shot in Game 7 of the 2016 NBA Finals was one of the most amazing shots I've ever seen in my life, and I've given Kyrie grief his whole career. I said if he didn't have that shot, his career would not be as tremendous or as iconic as we think it is. But he gets full credit for that basket. It was an amazing shot. They did everything right in that scenario. They set up the switch, knowing that Steph Curry was going to be on them. You have LeBron James, the Cleveland guy, right there, and it's Kyrie Irving that takes the three-pointer and makes it, and they go on to dethrone the 73-9 Warriors team. That coming back from a 3-1 deficit. It is one of the most amazing shots maybe I've ever seen in my life. The other one, most amazing shot is maybe Kawhi Leonard's quadruple bounce off the rim that goes in to beat the 76ers and lend them to a eventually world championship in 2019. But for me, it's Kyrie.
All right, I'm going to keep mine short and sweet here because I think mine's pretty simple. I'm going back to 1998, Game 6, known as the shot by Michael Jordan himself against the Utah Jazz. He had that classic push off of Brian Russell there at the top of the key. And to this day, I mean, I have like a photographic memory of that still shot. Whoever took that photo, just brilliant work there, showing the final ticks on the scoreboard there as Jordan releases that picture perfect form. And of course, as we know it, he knocked it down with ice in his veins. So that one is one of my all-time favorite shot moments, and definitely another historical one there. But I thought all three of us came up with some pretty good ones there. And with that, that will do it for this edition of the 48 Minutes Podcast on Believe. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll be back with you later on this week to be sure you're up to date in 48 on all things around the association. Take care, everybody.